Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. Jacqueline. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter. Get the value you need and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jacqueline at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, and we are back. Welcome to all our USA Global TV and radio family members, listeners, and new listeners, everybody that is joining us on this channel. It is wonderful to be back. Yes, back because I had a bit of a hiatus over our summer break, which I know for the Northern Hemisphere, you guys are enjoying winter, and I am enjoying summer in the Southern Hemisphere. So yes, differences in global positioning makes a few differences in our weather patterns as well. I'm back though, and I'm very, very happy to be back with all of you wonderful people, and hoping that we all can level up as human beings in 2023. So how will we be doing that this year? I thought one fun way of starting us off is looking at who we are. Right. Who are you? Who am I? Who are we? And digging into that a little bit more. Now, I don't know about you guys. When I was still in school, I loved paging through magazines, and whenever there was a little quiz, I would jump into doing the quiz. Now, whether it was a scientific-based quiz or just a fun quiz, didn't really matter. I loved doing a quiz. And sometimes it would tell me that, well, whatever color lipstick I enjoyed best is related to a preference of kissing or some other silly thing. And sometimes there was things with a little bit more substance to it. Of course, as I grew older, I enjoy the things with a bit more substance to it more, and always take everything with a pinch of salt, because I do believe that no matter what test we do, nothing can really pin us down on a piece of paper. So I thought for today and for the next 6 episodes that we're going to go through here, we will look a little bit around what it is that comes up for us and discover a bit more of ourselves in the process. So with that in mind, we can jump into our slides for today and have a bit of a look at how this might manifest and how this might look, to give you guys an idea of what it is that we're going to go through. Also, of course, last year we had a bit of a look into our self-awareness, and this is an element of self-awareness. Who even am I is part of us being more aware of our likes, dislikes, behaviors, not behaviors. Am I actually being authentic, not authentic? How does that look like? How does that translate to others? Right, so with that in mind, let me get my slides going. And we are reminded that every person is, in certain respects, like all other people, like some other people, and like no other person. And the best visual that I could think of that would illustrate this is this one. So thinking of a community or big group means we are like a whole lot of people, right? A big group, we might be like a whole lot of them. We are like some, such as our family. So our family is a smaller group, and we are most probably closer related and more like some of our family members than we might be people in our work environment or school environment or other social environments where we interact. And then, of course, we are all ourselves. And there is only one of you, and of course, one of me. So the one that we are the only one with that specific blend of specialness within us. How exactly does this blend come about, though? I mean, yes, we know that we are a blend of a whole bunch of different things, but how does this work? So what I thought we will do first is reflect. So what I want us to do is, you can do this with your eyes open, closed, whether you are sitting, standing, laying down, doesn't really matter. We only need your brain power and a little bit of your feeling for this. So think about your life thus far, where you are finding yourself at the moment. So looking back at your life, what is in there that you can see these certain patterns, right? So think about easy places to find patterns might be relationships that we have. Now, these might be romantic relationships, these might be work relationships. Any interactions that we have with other human beings shows us relationships, whether it is close relationships or not so close relationships, where we can find patterns. In all relationships, the one constant is, me. In all my own relationships, the one constant is always me. So any patterns I will see, behaviors that I might think others display, is things that I bring forward. So what are those things that we can see come up for us more regularly? So really think about patterns that you have observed within your relationships. Now, if you have that pattern identified, you maybe not have that pattern identified. Sometimes they are in our blind spots and we don't know about them. So another way for us to think about patterns is feedback that we have received. So maybe people keep telling us that we are perfectionists, or that we are very driven, or that we always rush with the door in hand into the room. So we don't really think about what we do before we do it. There might be different ways that we are displaying or getting feedback about the way that we behave. So think about the times that you've had feedback and what sort of patterns do you see there? What type of things come up on a regular basis? Is it that maybe we don't communicate enough or too much? What's coming up for you? Now, the next thing I want you to do is think about the thing that you have linked to that pattern. What is it that is important for you to behave a certain way? So, for instance, if my pattern is that I avoid difficult conversations. Don't like them, don't want to have them. I would like harmony. So for me to achieve harmony, one way for me to do that is avoiding difficult conversations. Right. So thinking about that pattern, I can see that that is things that might have happened throughout my life, different things that I do or ways that I act with people. It shows up, and then the avoiding happens when I don't want to disrupt my equilibrium for whatever reason it is that I don't want to disrupt it. So when I think about that balance or that harmony, what is my construct within that space that helps me to keep that equilibrium? So one of the things is that people that are harmonious do not argue, right? That might be one of my constructs. So one of the things that I think to be harmonious is not to have arguments. So for a person that has arguments, it means that there's no conflict, because I might connect arguments with conflict. So you see how the different ways of thinking for me to have balance is connected to me then avoiding something that I'm not supposed to be avoiding because I don't want to have conflict. So what we do is we create these different constructs for ourselves. Now we might have one overarching one that everything else is connected to, or we might have a whole bunch of different ones, and they are interconnected in some way or form. So thinking about these constructs that we have, they all come from different places, right? It isn't necessarily something that we were born with. We don't come into this world going, you know what, I'm just going to avoid arguments. We don't. That's not the way it works. Or I'm going to get into as many arguments as I can possibly get into. You're not born this way. We pick some of these things up. Some of it might be genetic. So now that we've reflected on patterns that we see within our life, let's move on to the building blocks. So our building blocks, and this is really where these type of things comes from, right? So our building blocks are made out of biologic building blocks, so physical things that genetically is passed over from one generation, one parent to their child, right? So your hair color, for instance, your natural hair color, not the one that comes out of the bottle. Your hair color will have some genetic linking between your mom and dad and have that mix, so you have the color that you have. Your eye color would be the same. So the physical, how we look like, it's easy to go, okay, this person is part of that family. We can physically see it. For our personality, our internal world, there's certain elements, and from research, they estimate about 50% in the vicinity of is made out of our genetic makeup. So we have a genetic disposition to be a certain way. For instance, if there were to be two parents that were very extroverted and they have a genetic disposition for extroversion, it's not something that they learned, they are genetically more inclined to extroversion, the likelihood for them is very high to have genetically inclined children that would be extroverts. So when we think about that, there's a biologic building block for us for the way that we interact and the way that we are in the world. Then the next building block is our social building block. Of course, the family where we grow up, the environment where we grow up in, our cultures, our communities, all of those things has an impact and an influence on the way we will behave. For instance, if I was born in Asia, the way I would have developed would be different to me, same parents, same everything, being born in America versus being born somewhere in Europe. So the way that I develop and the environment in which I am will also have some impact on how I developed and the way that my personality develops, and the things that I think of as important and not important. Remember that construct that I talked about a little bit earlier on? So the way that I make my links will most probably have an impact from my biological side as well as my social side. So those two are already big building blocks, right? Then, of course, there's one more. And this one is free traits. So sometimes we find that people will be a certain way. So they might, for instance, be very driven, not have a problem whatsoever with conflict. They will jump into things. They will call a spade a spade. They will do whatever it is that they need to do. And they might come across to others as abrasive at times. The same person might know that they will not see their family for a couple of years. Then, having spent some time with their family, all of a sudden, they are very accommodating. They are very nurturing. They actually try to have balance and not have any arguments within that space for a short period of time. And this might feel to the rest of the family a little bit odd, because now all of a sudden this person is behaving in a different way than they normally do. Now, what is happening in this specific circumstances is that the person in question are displaying some free traits. Now, they have a chosen project or a chosen place that they want to invest time and energy in, and this might require them to behave in a different way, to show up in a different way. So we can change the way that we behave. The thing to take into consideration, if we remember our structure that we built, right? So there's some biology in it and there's some sociology in it. This is built over years. It's not something that we're just going to dismantle all of a sudden. Within certain ways of learning, we can alter them, we can change them, and yes, over time, we can also dismantle them if this is what we choose to do. It does take some time and effort though. So if for a very short period of time, it is only required for us to do a project, we can most probably, in the example that we have, for the family member that is going away and had a little bit of an interaction with their family, extended family, of course, before going on their year-long trip, that short space of interaction can easily be changed for them without feeling too strenuous. So making sure that we understand how we normally show up in the world for others and for ourselves, and what is within that comfort space for us is really, really important. So understanding these building blocks takes us one step closer to understanding who we really are in the world and how we're showing up a little bit better. And then, of course, that brings us to a few questions that we can ponder until next week when we dive into the next phase of discovering a little bit more about ourselves. So when we think about just uncovering a little bit of this, right? Looking at, well, possibly what is some of those structures? What has influence on me and how does that look like? So question number one, what type of groups influence you? So when you think about the groups that you interact with, this might be social groups, friend groups, work groups, other networking groups, your groups that you interact with on social media, right? Even the things you watch on TV, it is groups that you interact with. It is other people that has an impact and influence on your thinking and possibly behavior. So what type of groups influence you? Then the next one, how does your upbringing impact your behavior? Now, I know for some people, they're like, I never want to be like X parent or Y parent or whoever, right? And then they think they're not. And yet, there might be things where they're actually exactly the same. So, how does our upbringing impact the way that we behave? And yes, even if we think we're not like the parent that we said we don't want to be like when we were a teenager and got very frustrated, we might still be. So really look at that. And then the last question, when are you most comfortable? And how do you behave when you are? So think about those conversations, those interactions where you're like, yeah, I really enjoyed that, right? Was it an interaction where maybe you collaborated with people? Or was it an interaction that had a heated debate? And that's good. Understanding the interactions and the environments in which we really thrive, that is part of what we are going to do so that we can discover a little bit more of ourselves and how it is that we show up in the world. And that, for today, is the end of our lesson. Of course, if you want to get hold of me, that is nice and easy. You can do that via LinkedIn. Just drop me a message and let me know that you got hold of my content via USA Global TV and Radio. And if you, for some odd reason, don't find me on LinkedIn or don't like LinkedIn, which is all good too, you can always email me on Mariska at journey2discover.com. So I will spell that for you just in case you cannot see a screen, and hopefully you have a pen and paper with you. So my name, Mariska, at journey, journey, 2, as I said, the number 2, discover, over.com. And that brings us to the end of our lesson, very first lesson for 2023. And I'm really excited for us to go on this learning journey and discover what this year might hold for all of us. And of course, discover a little bit more of ourselves in the process. Until next week, enjoy. Bye.